We are set to make $580,000 in just around 9 months from one project in Dubai. Now, if you've ever tried renovating here, you'll know it's not easy. Hire the wrong contractor, buy in the wrong area, or overspend on the wrong finishes, and your margin, well, it disappears overnight. And we've seen investors spend 3 million dirhams on a renovation, then actually spending another 2 million dirhams fixing it. That's £1 million just gone. That's where we built a system that covers everything, and every investor we've worked with has come back for repeat deals. So in this video, I'm gonna break down how that system works, the exact project that is making us $580,000, the numbers behind it, how to spot the opportunities, and I'm gonna take you to our project so you can see what we're doing and our exact process. These are things that you shouldn't look over in the Dubai market. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into the exact process, there's something that I really want to clear up and get into a little bit deeper. So the thing about renovating properties in Dubai, it's not about cutting corners or trying to do it the quickest or even just a little bit of ego like I need to do this on my own. No, it's about making sure that the end product is what it should be in order to maximize the resale. So for example, when we are renovating our houses, we've got the end user in mind and we don't get emotional about the house. And my investors, I say to them respectfully, please don't get emotional about the house that we're renovating. You might like a certain color, but the colors that we're choosing for this property are based on, say, the psychology of the buyer that are coming to purchase this property, So what I'm saying is this needs to be treated as a business and not a passion project. Of course, you can have fun along the way, and that's where we're here to help. Now, let me actually walk you through our project and show you how we do this. Now, if you're interested in understanding how we can help you in terms of renovation and redeveloping properties, then all what you need to do is book a one-to-one call with me below. So if you're a serious investor with 10 million dirhams and above to acquire the property, then we'd be more than happy to help out and walk you through exactly how we can help you from start to finish. So the first step whenever renovating a property is acquiring it, okay? Now, this is something that a lot of people, they don't really know if they've never looked into the market, what exactly is prime to buy. They just assume that we can buy any villa in a certain location and it will make money. So we're standing here in our Arabian Ranches project, and I'll tell you exactly why we purchased this one, all right? So the first thing is that, well, we got it for a great price, and it was vacant upon transfer, so that meant we could get in straight away. A lot of these properties in these locations are not necessarily completely vacant. Number two, we know that there is a track record of resale in this location. Number three, Imar communities are categorically the best and the most in demand. And number four, the positioning of the villa is situated around 5 minutes to the golf course in a beautiful location where you've got huge green trees all around, so it actually feels very private and exclusive. Now let's go inside. So people often ask me, how does your business model work? And it starts 5 simple stages: source, design, construct, market, and resell. Okay, so sourcing the property, I would say, is the hardest part, because there's just not a lot of good deals on the market. Just recently we had one client, one buyer, and 3 deals fell through in 2 weeks just because of greed from sellers, all right? But anyway, we source and we build a feasibility study. And in this feasibility study, it's gonna break down, the rough costs of what everything is gonna be, how much it's gonna be to acquire, design, build, and then renovate, and all those kinds of things, and obviously the resale price. Okay, so then we go into our design phase where we introduce our amazing designers who build us and create us something very special, something that's not necessarily been done. It's not cut and copy. Every property we do is unique. And once we've started the design and finished the design, we start working into the construction. We bring our team in. We start the build. As you can see, it's ongoing right now. That's why the site looks like it does. Okay, and we oversee that. Me and my business partner, James, who you're gonna meet in a moment, we will come to the site every day to check in on all of our sites to make sure everything is going smoothly. And we report back to our clients every single Monday. And then after this process, we market, actually a lot of during the process, so you'll see more and more on my channel what happens to this property. You'll watch it come to life. We'll get the market excited for it, okay? We put it out there, we showed visual renders of what it's gonna be, and around 6 to 8 weeks before it's ready, we'll start actually doing our viewings, and then of course we'll resell the property. And how we do that, it'll either be directly through us with a buyer, or we collaborate with the best agents in these locations. Now we actually take a profit share in this project. That's our skin in the game, which is 8 to 10 months of work, coming to the site every day, making sure your capital is looked after, and we oversee this entire process. And you know what? We've had a great success so far, and it's been very fun. And this project, as you can see here, we're looking at an exit price between 15 to 18% net ROI, okay, on full cash, but actually this client's taking a mortgage. And we'll go through the numbers in here later, but we're sort of looking at all in around 11.5 million dirhams. So yeah, we'll get into the more technical bits later on in the video. Okay, so we're not actually going to go upstairs because it's too busy. We've got all the guys upstairs doing the waterproofing, but let's talk about this space. James, we're going to open it up, all right? Now,
exactly.
You know, from an end user point of view, why do you think so many people, you know, appreciate the open spaces?
Well, people want open spaces. They want larger living areas.
Yeah.
It just feels more airy once you do it. So it makes a lot of sense inherently.
Yeah, so when you actually open this space, as I said, we're going to be doing 3 extensions here. We're going to do one here, one in this room, and one upstairs. And once we increase the size of the windows and we let in more natural daylight, the space all of a sudden feels way bigger. This is only a 3,300 square foot house. You know, we're adding 200 square foot to it. Well, you know yourself. I mean, look at the success we had in Meadows.
Yeah, I feel like once you open it up just slightly, it feels so much bigger. Yeah. Same reason we're doing the bulkhead ceilings. It makes the room seem so much higher really than it actually is, which gives a bit of grandeur in that sense.
Yeah, because I mean, your other option is basically flat ceilings with the, you know, the air conditioning, ventilation coming down with just the slits in the wall and the ceilings. So we're going to go over to the ranches now, the golf club, because that's a very nice little spot. And I want to talk about a little bit more in demand about our services and how we're helping people, and also like how you as an investor can take advantage in this market. So obviously investors naturally ask, well, what kind of capital do I need to start the renovation? And it's not saying you can't do it for less than 10 million, but we personally now don't take on anything with a villa that's worth below 10 mil, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we've seen it a few times where we thought about doing townhouses and different, more cheaper assets, but the ROI is just not there really.
No, because I mean, at the end of the day, you've seen on the channel, I mean, when we did, you know, James's property, we did Emirates Hills, you know, that's upwards of 20% and above, right, on full cash. With that same amount now, which, as I said, we're going to break down into the numbers later on. If you've got 10 mil to acquire a property now, and let's say you're spending 2 million on it, your ROI might only be 15%. The thing is the time frame. You know, the time frame can be executed within sort of 9 months, maybe 10 months with the full resale, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, we've seen now that it's just got so competitive, right?
Yeah, it's even difficult to acquire the assets. I mean, it's not like it was 6 months ago or maybe a year ago.
No. And, you know, I think that is just because naturally a lot of people saw this opportunity and wanted to take advantage of it. But this is why it's more important than ever. And this is not me saying you should only work with us. If someone wants to do it on their own, by all means, go ahead and try and figure it out. But you need to work with people who actually know the market, know the lay of the land, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about community-wise? Like, want to tell the audience what areas we mainly focus in?
I feel like all of the legacy communities, such as here in Arabian Ranches, very good type of community since it's a well set up community.
Yeah.
It has a lot of life. People like to buy here, families like to live here.
Yeah.
So once you're finished, you can usually sell them quite quickly as there's a lot of demand.
So a lot of people think that the biggest risk when investing is just picking the wrong contractor. But we're actually going to talk now about 4 mistakes that we see in the market and can be detrimental to your investment. So mistake number 1 is actually overpaying for design features and actually spending a bit too much money in certain scenarios. You know, like let's take our Arabian Ranches.
Yes.
Okay, we know that it's the lower end of the luxury market. So we wouldn't go and put Italian travertine and marble in every room. It wouldn't make sense financially, you know?
I feel like there's 2 sides to it, right? On the one side, it has to be very sellable and very likable. On the second side, it can't be looked at as an end user project. It has to have a certain efficiency in terms of price in mind, where you can't just mix and match whatever you like.
So it's about not underpaying and doing a cheap job with cheap materials, but it's about also not overpaying and going too over the top, because, you know, you can get so carried away with these houses.
Yeah.
And we've seen it happen, you know, but then your asking price at the end would just be out of the reach, because there is a buffer on how much these houses can sell.
Certainly. You sort of have to see that you're within margin and also have enough profit at the end so it makes sense for you to do these projects.
So mistake number 2 is actually we see happen when people don't understand the approval process and permits and what you can and can't do to a house. Because naturally, you know, especially if you're coming from UK or Europe, you just think, we can extend anywhere.
Exactly. It's not like in Europe.
No.
There are certain guidelines where you have to work within that framework, and that process is not as straightforward as you might think it is. So if you do it for the first time, it's very difficult. There's a lot of hiccups. So it's easier to work with somebody who actually knows the most efficient way forward to not lose time, because you can just lose so much time very quickly.
Yeah, but let's not underestimate the cost as well.
Cost as well. Cost is huge.
Cost is huge. I mean, in our project right now, you know, we're looking at 700 dirhams per square foot for enclosed spaces.
Yeah.
1,000 dirhams per square foot
for the extensions.
For the extension on non-enclosed spaces. So a lot of people don't factor that in.
Very true. And you sort of have to ask yourself what makes sense.
Yeah.
How much extension makes sense? You can do a 10% extension, but do you want to use the full 10% if it doesn't really make sense? Because you want to use it in areas where it really adds value. That's how you make the house worth more.
So mistake number 3, choosing the wrong location within the community or the wrong layout. I mean, this is a big one.
Huge one.
Right? I actually mentioned before, you remember the house I was telling you about where the road was elevated above the actual garden. So from your garden,
Yes.
you're eye level with the road. That's going to be hard to resell.
It's a huge eyesore. I feel like there's a handful of eyesores, such as these sort of roads or the close proximity to main access roads, things like 5G antennas. People don't like them in your front yard or backyard. It's not a very sellable property if you have that. So these features, you just have to scout the neighborhood and see, would I want to live there? And if you can answer yes to these different criterias, then it's a go. If it's not, you probably want to keep your hands away of it.
Yeah, and then the other one I wanted to touch on is like understanding the layout of the house. Let's say, you know, we want to do extensions and we want the house to have that open feel, that open flow. Some houses just don't allow it. You know, there are certain houses that we can't do things structurally for it to make sense. So, you know, the older type villas, they were built in quite an old style.
Yeah.
So we've seen, you know, like you've become very limited, and then we tried to do these modern upgrades. We want to do this modern stuff to it.
Yes.
But we just can't, you know? The house doesn't allow it. And I'm not saying it's like we can't actually do it, because we could do it, but approvals-wise, we can't do it, you know?
Yeah, I feel like the floor plan needs to allow for these things to make sense, because otherwise you're just spending so much money on civil work where it's not efficient anymore.
And number 4 is mismanagement of contractors.
It's a very big one, right?
Yeah.
Because if you get the wrong contractor from the start, you're doomed, right? Because they will absolutely prolong the project, which is the worst thing you can have. You have to go back, do works again.
Yeah.
And it's a very bad situation to be in for any investor or homeowner. So you have to choose very wisely who you work with so they get the work done to your standards and expectations.
Yeah, and regardless of whoever we've used for any of our works on our projects, our main priority is going to these projects every single day, because we want to be known to be going to there. You know, we want our whoever we're working with to work hard, you know, because we've got execution deadlines to meet, you know, so have they. But, you know, we add that pressure, you know, we add that level of security for our investors so that they know the work's getting done. Because, I mean, I've seen it loads, you know, a contractor will tell somebody, yeah, we're going to get it done. And they say, we're going on holiday for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Oh, yeah, no problem. It'll be done when you get back.
Exactly.
And guess what happens? They come back, nothing is done. The site's a mess. Nothing's happened. Contractor's like, oh, yeah, waiting for materials, or didn't get the approvals, or some sort of excuse. And it's just delays. Take my place where I live, for example.
Yeah.
I've got the contractors who I trust to do my garden. My neighbors have been doing their garden for about 8 weeks. We've done it in 3 days.
Yeah.
You know?
That's, of course, the efficiency.
And it's so annoying because they just don't stop renovating. And I'm like, there's one guy on site with a shovel. I'm like, what's going on?
That's, of course, what you shouldn't do. And I feel like it really starts with a clean site and it ends with good finishes and a good structure of the contractor, which manages his people in the most efficient way.
Absolutely.
So the type of client we see a lot here at Keystone is mainly overseas clients, which have maybe sold their businesses, which want some investments, be well diversified, but don't have the actual time to be on site every day, who want somebody to manage these investments in a very efficient and effective manner to get the achieved ROIs.
Absolutely.
But to put in not as much groundwork as we like to say.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like a lot of our investors end up actually, you know, like you say, they're from overseas and they've just relocated or they've just sold the business and now they've got their foot in the door, they're sitting on some capital, and yeah, they might be diversified in other assets like off-plan and stuff like that, but let's be honest, that's a long-term play. And our investors like to see returns quicker, within 12 months, right?
And this is, of course, more engaging. You have to be more engaged. You have to be more maybe overviewing the investment, the project. So we mitigate that discrepancy between the investor and the execution and see that both parties are happy with the work that needs to be put in for these projects to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that the main thing is that they don't fall into any of the mistake categories that we just mentioned.
That's right.
Because there are big mistakes that are very easy to make if you're not careful.
Yeah, I feel like if you just go out in the market and do it yourself, you'll encounter all of these mistakes.
Yeah.
And we're here to one-to-one mitigate them and see that the client is taken care of from start to finish.
Exactly. So if you don't have the local expertise, don't try and learn it on a multi-million-pound project. Partner with someone who has the boots on the ground, who knows what to do, who has the experience, so that you don't end up losing money. in this next section of the video, we're going to break down all of the figures exactly on our project now and what generally it looks like and how much capital you will need at the beginning.
Now, this is the moment you've all been waiting for, the numbers on our current project in Arabian Ranches. Okay, so as I said to you, we bought a 3-bedroom and this was the purchase price, 8.45 million dirhams. Now there's a 4% DLD charge, there's a 2% commission charge. This works out at 507,000 dirhams. For the full turnkey reno, this is going to be your design, construction, and we've included fees and furniture in this. Okay, we've mitigated cost, we've managed to get it to 2.4 million. This has been confirmed, and yeah, we're currently very active on this project, so we know we'll stick to this budget. And then that brings us up with a total of 11.357. Okay, so assuming, which we have done, give the client 3 scenarios. We recently saw a transaction at 13.2 million in the same community in Arabian Ranches, and honestly, it was not that good. It was poorly done, it was cheaply executed. So for us to sort of say that 13.8 is quite conservative, you know, we're now seeing a trend in Arabian Ranches as prices go up. Turnkey homes, I think anything priced around sort of like 13, 14, 15 is a sweet spot. When you go to like 16, 17, 18, it gets a little bit of uncharted territory in Arabian Ranches. So I am confident that we're going to get around this, maybe more. So that's what we're going for in this scenario, which leaves us with a gross profit of 2.443 million dirhams. And we are taking a profit share of 12% in this particular project. Our profit shares range between 10 and 15%. It just depends on how much profit we make. If it goes above sort of 14 million, we probably look at taking 15%. Again, we just need to work the numbers and see what overall costs come to. But this is sort of where we're at. So that leaves us with a net profit of 2,149,840 million dirhams and 18% net ROI, okay, which is $585,787,000. Now, of course, there are many other factors in the particular deal we're doing. Okay, these numbers aren't super accurate for this client. Why? Because he took a mortgage, all right? So his initial equity inflow is a lot different, and, you know, there are other charges that you'd have to take into consideration, all right? But this is kind of giving you a base understanding about what this project entails, you know? There are also things to consider like DWAR and, you know, service charges and stuff like that. But generally, this is the figures that we are aiming to hit, all right? So as you come into this renovation space, you know, you've seen me talk about Meadows, you've seen me talk about Emirates Hills, where that 18% was actually over like 22, 25%. So in this price bracket now, somewhere between 15 and 18% is realistic, okay? Now, time frame for this project, we're aiming to get in and out probably in 9 months from start to finish, okay? So not a bad return though. Now, a lot of investors that are potentially looking to make that 20, 25, 30%, you know, we got a bit used to that in Dubai. It got like a bit of a luxury to make 20, 25%, and those numbers are still thrown around a lot, but realistically, we have a lot of experience in this now. Anything below acquisition cost of like 10 to 11 million dirhams, 15 to 18% is generally where you're gonna look, because you still need to do a decent renovation. Some people will try to do that renovation for 1 million dirhams and will not be able to sell it for this price point. Okay, so if you wanna make those higher returns, you probably need to be spending 15, 18, 20 million dirhams to acquire the property in more premium locations, Jumeirah Golf Estates, Jumeirah Islands, and then of course your next step up is Palm Jumeirah, Al Barari, and it depends, you can go all the way up to Emirates Hills, and you know, you could keep going basically, all right? And this is, you know, how we build our feasibility studies, so when our clients come to us, we can at least show and present them the figures of what's realistic, because the one thing that a lot of people get into this market and think is that, you know, they're going to make 30% on the money, and it's not going to happen. So we're going to leave this one there. For anyone who is interested in a full turnkey offering from Keystone, our company, we'll be more than happy to assist. As I say, we aren't taking on projects less than 10 million dirhams acquisition. So ideally somewhere between 13 and 14 million, must have cash at hand. And of course, if you need access to financing, we do have good brokers and, you know, some connections with banks that can help, as long as your obviously financials add up. You know, we don't have any specialist financing, any private funding like that, but of course the banks can help you out if your financials look right. Thanks for watching, and in this next video, there's 3 unanswered questions you must ask yourself before investing in Dubai. Go check it out.